Hello Year 6 and I'm here to read your next instalment of Fly Me Home. So we are on chapter 18 and we've just got off the bit where Ty was dragging her to school because she really doesn't want to go. Okay, so one morning though, Mrs. Winters came over during literacy and said that she wanted me to spend some time with a different teacher. The new teacher met me outside the classroom. She had very long brown hair that snaked down her back and a friendly smile. Around her neck she wore a large pendant, a bright blue-green stone, and through her nostril the shiny curve of a nose ring. When she spoke to me, she bent right down so that her face was level with mine. "Hello," she said. She looked genuinely pleased to see me, as if we'd met before. Like the mother in the playground, Catherine. Like Betsy in the garden. "I'm Miss Doyle. How do I say your name?" I whispered it, but because she was so close to me, she heard me and said, "Lilu. Am I saying it right? That's a lovely name. Lilu. I think she liked saying it out loud. She kept repeating it. Lilu, right. What we're going to do is visit my room today. I have all sorts of things in there that I think you might like. Do you want to do that?" I nodded. "Let's go then," she said. She held out her hand, and when I took it, I felt the edges of her silver rings. They held large bluish stones that caught the light. "I like your rings," I said quietly. Again, I wasn't sure if she'd hear me, but she beamed down at me and said, "They're called moonstones." On my rings. They look a little like the moon, don't they? We came to a very narrow staircase. "It's best to run up here if you can," Miss Doyle said, and with that sprang lightly up the steps ahead of me. The stairs bent round and round, so when I turned each corner, I wondered if she might have disappeared. There, we made it. Miss Doyle pushed open a door and beckoned me in. Her room was full of stuff. The ceiling was draped with scarves, the shelves were full of interesting things. Pictures covered every available space. It didn't feel like I was in school anymore, but in some sort of treasure chest, where the light was pink and blue and yellow. On one table there were all sorts of animals. On another was a box full of puppets. On every bit of wall hung photographs or bookshelves with books of all different shapes and sizes. I didn't know where to look first. "Would you like some water, Lilu?" Miss Doyle asked me, and poured me a cup before I could answer. "There's a lot to do up here. But today we are just going to have an explore. Sound good?" I nodded. While I was looking around, I saw something I recognised and what Miss Doyle called a nature table. It was just like the stuff I'd found in the matchbox. "I have some of this," I told her. "Moss." "Moss," I said, repeating the word. "It's great stuff, isn't it?" Miss Doyle said, and passed her clump of moss from hand to hand, in much the same way as I had done mine when I first found it. "It's so soft. I found this little piece in the woods near where I live. It had completely covered the ground. Where did you find yours?" "I just found it in the street," I said. I couldn't help sounding a little sad, because the truth was, since I'd found the leaf wrapped in newspaper, nothing else had happened. For some reason, the person had stopped leaving things. "Moss can grow in most places, especially on walls," Miss Doyle said. "We could have a moss hunt if you like." I nodded, and then I spied something else on the nature table that I knew. "Miss Doyle." "Oh, you say my name like Ms, like a bee. Ms Doyle." She buzzed a bit more and laughed. "What have you noticed, Lilu?" "I have one of these too. But my one looks a bit different to this." I pointed to another object. It was like the wooden thing I'd found after my first day at school. The thing I didn't know the name of. A pine cone. They grow on pine trees. Do you know what a pine tree looks like? Miss Doyle reached up for a big book, which she flicked through. "Here we are," she said, showing me a picture of a huge towering tree with a shaggy mass of leaves. It came to a point at the top. I looked at the other things on the table. There weren't any walnuts, but one of the leaves looked like the one I'd found wrapped up in the newspaper and tied with string like it was a present. The last surprise. "What's this?" I asked. "That's just a little piece of bracken. It's beautiful, isn't it? I love the shape." I nodded in agreement. I hadn't used my piece of bracken to do anything yet, though I was sure that I would be able to make something happen with it if I wanted to. "So, Lilu, is this your favourite part of my room, the nature table?" Miss Doyle asked me. I nodded. I started to say, but I was so unused to speaking at school that the words stuck somewhere in my throat. I didn't finish the sentence. But Miss Doyle smiled warmly and looked at me as though she was carefully considering what I was saying, and I felt my chest loosen. I felt able to speak. I like these things, I said, and gestured to the bracken and moss and the pine cone that I'd placed around me in a circle. Then, all of a sudden, the words came bubbling out of me. A friend used to give me things like this. They were like treasure. But now they've stopped, and I don't know why. Have you asked them why? Miss Doyle said gently. I shook my head. Well, maybe you could give them something back. Have you tried that? That's a good idea, I said. Miss Doyle looked at her watch. Gosh, Lulu, it's time to get you back to class already. But we'll meet again in 2 days' time, on Friday, okay? Maybe you'd like to bring in some of the things your friend has given you. Sounds like you are quite the collector. My face fell at the thought of going back to the classroom. Miss Doyle went quiet for a moment when she noticed. She looked like she was thinking. Her nose ring twinkled in the light. Why don't you choose one of the things from the nature table, she suggested, to give to your friend? Really, I said, I can take something. Yes, of course. What would you like to take? What do you think they might like? I looped from piece to piece, and in the end, I took a little bit of what Miss Doyle told me was bark from a silver birch tree. It felt a bit like paper and was white with brown markings. For the first time since I'd come back to school, I felt myself begin to relax. I took the silver birch back carefully in between the pages of my reading book so it wouldn't get damaged in my bag and smiled. I hoped that the friend I'd never met would like it.